using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Inner and outer world peace through individual strength. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would even feel without. Welcome back to the Best Feeling Podcast, the Best Feeling Network, with your only no nonsense podcast with your host, Herbie. This is Pal Go On. Good morning, wherever you are, whenever thou art, whether you are here now live watching the premiere at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. on Thursday, November 17th, 2022. Can you believe we're already here? Thursday, November 17th, 2022. 9 a.m. Good morning, whether you are here now or whether you are in the future, you freaking crazy, beautiful time traveler, you! Welcome. Whether you're watching live or on a VOD, a video on demand, like a YouTube or something like that, I hope you're feeling so great out there. Welcome back to the Best Feeling Podcast. How go on? What we'll be discussing today on the Truth Hurts Day is we're discussing relationships between ourselves and other topics. Every day on Padawan, on Truth Hurts Days, we are discussing some more difficult truths that might be hard to swallow, but using some good old body magic tricks to feel so good on the way out, on the way throughout. Now, as we are using this podcast, this Padawan, as a full body experience. I said, as we are using this podcast as a full body experience, feel free to come back to this video or rewatch this video or watch the video anytime and indulge as a full body experience as you let ourselves melt into the symphony of the sounds around you, always staying present wherever you are, whenever thou art. And all throughout this body experiment today, throughout Palgoan, we hope you will enjoy these body magic tricks in this simulation of ours in which we all die. We all die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with every breath that you take. Every breath you take. In this simulation, we hope that you will hold your controller properly with us today. How do you hold your controller properly today? How do we hold our controller properly today in this simulation? We invite you to pretend that there is a candle, just a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Like a birthday candle, it's just a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Wherever you are, whether you're outside in public or whether you're in private, we hope that you will place this candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And it's just flickering there. As you observe your sense of self, as you pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. You're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling necessarily, but just that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. As we observe our sense of self, as in how your left eye kind of feels different from your right eye, or how you know that your 2 feet exist down there, even with your eyes closed. How do we know that? Well, using our sense of self. How does your sense of self feel as we hold our controller properly today? By one example, pretending there's a candle in front of your lips and everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out. And that is part of the human design as we observe our sense of self. How does that feel for you today? And as such, are we allowing all of these words to go in one ear and out the other? In one ear and out the other, all throughout the show today. As we are holding on to the meanings, whatever means something to you. Not exactly the literal words, but rather the meanings. As we embark on a little bit of a space meditation for you today on this Truth Hurts Day. You do you, no matter what, at the end of the day, as we blend into this symphony of sounds that is all around you, listening for 7 different things in the room today before we embark on this Truth Hurts Day. On this Truth Hurts Day, we listen for 7 different things. To stretch our self-awareness like a muscle and feel so good this morning or evening, wherever you are. Is that a snare we hear in that song? Is that a crackle you hear in my voice? Are those birds outside? You hear the carpet scratching underneath your feet? Are you listening to the sound of busy traffic outside? Shifting the focus of our awareness as we can, pick out sounds in this symphony. Is that your hand rubbing against a steering wheel? Is that your fingers on the keyboard? As we observe our sense of self, as we leave our swallow muscles alone, as we discussed on this week's Mover Monday, are we leaving our swallow muscles alone today and observing our sense of self, and how does that feel for you? Does your right shoulder feel cocked forward a little bit in front of your left shoulder, or vice versa? Does your head feel like it's making good contact onto the topmost vertebrae of your spine? How does your sense of self feel? We ask ourselves some relevant perception questions about our body as we perceive it, and observe our sense of self to see how it reacts as the world becomes this paint that is splashed onto the canvas that is your body, as we observe our body and how it reacts to the world and our awareness. As we hold our controller properly today with a candle in front of our lips, today on the Truth Hurts Day, we ask, happiness, does it take work? I said on this Truth Hurts Day, Thursday, November 17, 2022 on Pow Go On, we ask, happiness takes work? And the answer might hurt a little bit as we are here on the Truth Hurts Day to swallow some heavier truths that might be harder to keep down throughout our daily lives. But are we going to leave you hanging high and dry with no way to deal with these negative feelings or these controversial or conflicting or disharmonious thoughts that might be protruding their way into our brain-like things, you godlike thing? Or are we going to be using some great good old body magic tricks on the way to make sure that we feel like we can return to balance at any point and actually integrate some of these thoughts, man? Actually integrate some of these thoughts and feel so good and rewarded for it. We'll be back after this short break to talk about, or to answer the question, does happiness take work? Does happiness take work? Here on November 17, 2022, a Truth Hurts Day with your host Herbie here on Pow Go On. We'll be right back after this short break. Drained? Depressed? Has the chaos of the world got you feeling confused and apathetic? Even gassy? Feeling like nothing gets you out of this funk? When you're feeling lost in the daily grind, left feeling meaningless, don't touch grass, touch the front of your shins. Feel less tired and more inspired with us on the Best Feeling Podcast. Pow Go On. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Why? For inner and outer world peace through individual strength. We hope you will allow all of these words to go in one ear and out the other today, all throughout the show. And this is simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes. But that timer is reset with every breath we take. We hope that you will join us as we invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips to hold this controller properly in the simulation of ours. We hope you will join us in placing a candle in your awareness. We invite you to pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. To hold this controller properly today and feel so good for it. You're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling necessarily, but simply that there is a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. As we spread some of that sweet, sweet hearing awareness to the front of your shins, whatever you are doing, whether you are taking a break from work or whether you're working and we are in the background for you. We hope that you will spread some of that sweet, sweet hearing awareness to the front of your shins as if they are the speakers of the world. And lastly, I want you to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Consciously think about leaving your swallowing muscles alone. Ask your body if it's leaving your swallow muscles alone as you observe your sense of self. As we can ask our bodies question, right? Whether or not our bodies feel in pain or whether or not they feel imbalanced. Whether or not they feel free to move or whether or not it feels lethargic. We can ask relevant questions about our body, can we not? And then observe our sense of self. And are we requesting to find out if our body is leaving its swallow muscles alone as we pretend there's a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out and observing our sense of self? Welcome back to the Best Feeling Podcast, the Best Feeling Network, your only no-nonsense podcast with your host Herbie here on Padawan. Today's a Thursday, November 17, 2022, which means on Padawan every Thursday is a Truth Hurts Day. It's a day on the Truth Hurts Day. We'll be answering the question, happiness takes work? Question mark. Happiness takes work? Question mark. Does eating a candy given to you take much work? Happiness takes work? What the heck do you mean? This is a truth that truly hurts, Herbie. How do we square this? Happiness takes work. Happiness shouldn't take work, Herbie. That's not fair. That's not fair. Come here as I grab your wrist or your attention. Come with me, sir, madame. Come this way. Let me show you something. Happiness takes work? Question mark. You'd be like, does eating a candy given to me take much work, Herbie? Happiness doesn't take work. It shouldn't take work. Eating a candy that's put into my hand is easy. But is simply experiencing pleasure happiness? I ask you in rebuttal. Or is happiness more like letting go, but with confidence? Falling, but with style. Or is happiness more like letting go, but with confidence? Is happiness more like the pleasure that you get from simply eating one candy that is placed into your hand as it tastes so sweet for that brief moment? Is that happiness? That short, sweet pleasure of taste as you eat a candy, is that happiness? Or is happiness more like being able to let go, but with confidence? Let go as in how, Herbie? Well, letting go of having to predict every scenario, possibly, as life itself is so unpredictable, right? We don't know what's around the corner, yet we want to be able to handle it. But being unable to handle previous scenarios locked us into a position, right, where we had to anticipate the future, right, in order to feel some kind of semblance of peace or happiness. We had to be like, I know what's coming. I'm going to make sure I know what's coming by funneling my experience so that I could deal with whatever I need to deal with. I'm not going to deal with anything else. What is happiness? And happiness doesn't take work. But what is happiness if not feeling safe to not spend all of our energy and stress anticipating what's coming, yet still come out on top of whatever comes through? How can this be achieved? This feeling safe to overcome any kind of scenario that might come our way? As we know, we spend so much of our energy anticipating what is coming. We think about the future based on what we know about the past or what we think we can recollect about the past. We try to predict the future so that we can feel happy and that we can handle whatever scenario is coming up, right? We end up stressing for hours about a situation we can't control. We end up stressing for hours, killing ourselves over trying to anticipate what is going to happen in order to be able to successfully deal with whatever what may. Don't we stress ourselves out? Don't we spend so much mental, spiritual, and physical energy trying to anticipate a future in which we are afraid of? Well, how can it be achieved to be happy in this state? You're not going to like it. This truth may be hurtful. Happiness takes strength. Happiness takes strength. Happiness takes strength. And I'll say it again. Happiness takes strength. If you'll say it with me. Happiness takes strength. If you'll say it with me. Happiness takes strength. If you'll say it with me. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. As you'll see on the diagram behind me, as we are chilling out into this conversation right here. Happiness takes work, question mark. Happiness takes strength, exclamation mark. Strength, inner strength, to be able to form a strong worldview that causes the least amount of disharmony in every decision that you're making, right? It takes strength to create a strong worldview. Not only just the strength to choke it down, possibly difficult worldviews that might be emotionally conflicting or emotionally controversial or emotionally unpleasant. It takes strength to create a strong worldview with ideas that might be unpleasant or might be inconvenient, as they might cause us to make certain decisions or cause us to have to make certain sacrifices. But it also takes strength to have the willpower to even continue to look for a worldview that is applicable to most situations. And you want to get a worldview that's applicable to all situations, right? That's why it's called a worldview, right? So it makes decision making in life easier, right? So an entire worldview, it's not called like a city view or a state view or a person view. It's a worldview, right? You want to find a worldview that catches all scenarios so that you don't have to keep creating new views for every new event that you encounter in life. Then hold all these conflicting worldviews and have to like compartmentalize your personality and change who you are for every situation, which is not happiness. You fool. Isn't a higher frequency of happiness achievable when we feel able to handle any scenario in a constructive way? Ensuring that the next time, the next challenge will always be a better experience. I say again, isn't a higher frequency of happiness achievable when we feel able to handle any scenario in a constructive way, ensuring a better time next time a challenge comes our way? When we feel able to handle any scenario in a constructive way, whether that be a win or a lose or whatever have you, there's a phrase that goes, you either win some or you learn some. How do we handle every scenario in a constructive way? And doesn't that create a higher frequency of happiness, though this might be a difficult thing to do, handling every situation in a constructive way? Might be a difficult thing to do. Would you say that it takes strength? Isn't this a stronger worldview rather than a state view? Isn't this a stronger worldview that might cause less disharmony in the way that we function throughout life? Would this be a stronger worldview to see that a higher frequency of happiness is achievable through being able to handle every scenario constructively? Do we not achieve a higher frequency of happiness? And as we know, every emotion is fleeting. You can't constantly be happy or sad. It's a fluctuation. And so you cannot aim for happiness, but rather aim to open the door to allow the most happiness to come into your life, whether frequency or intensity. And so in order to create more happiness in our lives, shouldn't we construct a stronger worldview than seeking or than to associate pleasure, simple pleasure with happiness, don't we owe it to ourselves to establish a stronger worldview than happiness is simply the pleasure from eating a candy, to something like happiness is strength to be able to handle unforeseen circumstances? What if you could be happy even though you knew that this candy would never show up? Or what if you could be happy with the uncertainty of whether or not you may even get a candy to eat in the first place? Say you're happy when that candy hits your hand, you're like, nom, 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 I'm happy now. And then you're all sad and depressed because you don't know if you'll ever get that happiness again. You'll never know if you're going to get that candy again because you can't control the outside world. You can only control your inside world, right? So you're all sad and depressed because you don't have that candy, that pleasure that you had for that short second. But what if you could feel happy in that time, in that uncertainty? What if you could feel that you were open still to future happiness despite not having that candy? Would that not be a stronger worldview? Doesn't this worldview take strength, be able to deal, to be able to find a way to spiritually, emotionally, and physically deal with that discomfort of not knowing when you'll get that candy again? To be able to feel at peace and happy when you're not having that candy again, or if you do have that candy again, whichever one it is, wouldn't that be a higher frequency of happiness? To be able to handle when you have the candy and also when you don't have the candy. And doesn't this take strength, inner strength, to be able to deal with the scenario of not having? As you know, you would have to have confidence in your ability to survive without it. And if you get it, then that's like a nice treat. Doesn't happiness lie in being unafraid of these unknown events, whether or not you will get the candy or whether you will have the candy? Being able to be happy in those moments even without, and being confident that you will be happy in those moments without, not even just to have it, but to have confidence that you can create it and recreate it for yourself. Even when scenarios arrive when there is no candy, can you create that happiness from within yourself? Do you have the faith that you can do it? Doesn't happiness lie in being unafraid of those events by feeling that you will be prepared? After all, we can't know all of what will happen to us. You cannot know all of what will happen to you, as we only control our inside world, or only have awareness of our inside world in that intimate way. We cannot control the outside world, so we do not know exactly what will come our way. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? It's kind of a good thing, as we do not know what will come our way, so we're not focused on trying to control the outside world. What you are focused on is controlling the inside world to make sure that you are prepared and you have faith in yourself that you are prepared for whatever come what may. As we cannot control the outside world, but we can control our own world, our inside world especially, as we hold our controller properly to be able to physically and thus spiritually deal with all unpleasant pain that is inflicted onto us by the world and by the own imbalance of our relationship with our own body, whether or not it is feeling harmonious or not, or whether or not it is in agreement with itself. We can learn to become acutely aware as we observe our sense of self. We can become more aware of the balances and imbalances placed onto us from the inside of our bodies, the relationship between itself and self. As we observe our sense of self by holding this controller properly today, by pretending that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And you're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling necessarily as you were typing on that keyboard, as you were walking down that road, as you were darting your eyes left and right. You're not thinking about inhaling necessarily or exhaling necessarily, simply that there's a candle in front of your lips and everyone's lips that they're trying to not put out. And we observe our sense of self. We challenge you to ask yourself if you're leaving your swallowing muscles alone and observe your sense of self. You know, your good old sense of self. How even if you close your eyes, you can tell if your left elbow feels different than your right elbow, how it's positioned in your body, its shape and size. You know, your sense of self. How your body feels so whole when you don't have a stomach ache, but when you have a stomach ache, you're able to distinguish that specific organ from your body and compartmentalize the feelings of your body Your good old sense of self, the one that's able to bring your awareness back to the whole of your body. As you pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Leaving your swallowing muscles alone as you observe that sense of self. The good old sense of self. Be right back after this short break. Talk about how you can grow those strengths to be able to have that higher frequency of happiness. Yeah. Right here on the Best Feeling Podcast, the Best Feeling Network, your only no-nonsense podcast with Herbie here on Pagawan. We'll be right back after this short break. That claim they're going to be boosting your mental capabilities, your physical performance, your behaviors in life. Tried them and then felt motivated yet slightly confused and cautious. Are the effects even real or are they a placebo? Are you achieving what you think you are achieving or is it imagination? Do you have all this energy now or is that imagination too? Be done with placebos. Be done with uncertainty. Isn't it so draining to be uncertain? You can't even begin to gain confidence in what you're doing. How about some actionable specific advice instead? Take this gummy, feel the front of your shins. Bam! That one's free. Take Pagawan with you wherever you go, whenever you go, and feel so good from the inside out. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Why? For inner and outer world peace through individual strength. As we feel so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every weekday morning, we hope you will join us in remembering that the weight of the body the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front, as we feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine. And into those rainbow arches, like at all times, as we do not sit on our legs, as we observe our sense of self today, as our own selves, our bodies are the only things we can truly feel and integrate with from the inside out. Everything else we must observe through this body of ours. Welcome back from that break. I hope you're feeling oh so good from the inside out. I hope you're remembering to ask yourself if you're leaving your swallowing muscles alone as you observe your sense of self wherever you are. Whether you are working on the computer, whether you're working on a car, or whether you are driving in a jet. Does that make sense? Driving in a jet. Whether you are piloting a jet. Whether you are doing flips on a trampoline right now. Are we in your AirPods or are we on the speakers? Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whenever thou art, I want to thank you for being here for this Truth Hurts Day. I hope you had a fantastic break. Hope you're feeling so good from the inside out. Don't ever let that candle leave the front of your mouth as we observe our sense of self. Today on the Truth Hurts Day, we are talking about happiness takes work? Question mark. Does it take work? Does it take work? Well, is happiness simply the pleasure of eating this candy for that momentary time, or is it having confidence that you can handle any situation that comes your way, though every situation that comes your way is out of your control? And yet to be confident to feel confident in handling every situation that comes your way, although we may not be able to control it. Being confident in handling all those unforeseen circumstances brings happiness. And how can you be certain to handle whatever comes your way? How can you be certain to handle whatever comes your way? Well, you can grow your strengths. Physical strength, of course. But also patience is a strength. Patience with yourself, with others, takes strength. As we know it takes a certain kind of nerve to be able to wash those feelings away. Those negative feelings you might be having, wanting to rush someone or wanting to answer something for someone, which actually might end up hindering their growth. As you know, as we all know, we grow best through experience, and that comes from making our own mistakes, which comes from having faith that someone, somewhere, whether that be you or maybe a guide, counselor, or a teacher or a coach at that time, will be able to handle mistakes being made. As we know, the best way to grow is being present while we make those mistakes and then learn to deal with those mistakes. Growing, again, a strength in being able to handle problems, which grows a confidence in being able to deal with unforeseen circumstances. Like the circumstance of that breath. Did you expect that breath? Pagawan is a full body experience, everyone. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. Feel free to revisit any of these episodes, as we are always feeling so good from the inside out and guiding our brain into interesting pathways along the way. Some actionable, specific advice instead. They used to philosophize in like Roman times or Greek times. Philosophy used to be like, you're talking about life and stuff, and it's just amazing to think that it's not applied to direct life when it clearly should be. It should be something that balances you throughout life so that it's actionable throughout life. And one of the best ways, obviously, is physical. To acknowledge that. I mean, we're all dealing with entire life experience that's really physical. Even the emotions that we experience, we know that we're experiencing them emotionally. So philosophy that doesn't involve physicality or feeling better from the inside out at your own volition. What is that? What kind of philosophy? It needs to be somewhat physical, at least, you know? There has to be some physical component, whether that be like hands together or some kind of like meditation thing. There needs to be a physical component because the everyday life struggles are all physical. Like sadness, depression, all that stuff is even physical. Physical strength, guys, it is a strength that can help with attaining this faith in having happiness, right? Not just the happiness that you feel, the pleasure that you feel, but the faith that you will be able to feel good despite whatever comes your way. Whether or not you get a candy, will you be able to feel good still? It takes strength, right, to find whatever that is. As it's not like if it just came just like right in front of your face wherever you are when you're like a little baby godlike child thing. If it was just there, then like the ability to feel good all the time, then you would just have it. But no, it's something that you must seek, and therefore it requires strength. I mean, like even walking across the street requires a certain amount of strength, right? But also patience is also a strength, as we just discussed, right? And you might want that strength, obviously, to be able to deal with whatever circumstance and to be able to come out in some semblance on top. You need mental strength, or rather, one of the strengths can be mental. Strengths can also be mental, like being knowledgeable about your job so that you can have the strength to be able to deal with unforeseen circumstances. And that is a strength that literally leads to peace and more happiness, as you are just less stressed about what may happen. It's not that you know everything that will happen, but with the frequency of dealing with problems, you have the faith that you can deal with a certain volume of problems. And that alone brings this kind of peace of just like knowing despite not knowing, right? Like knowing that you'll be fine despite not knowing what is going to happen. We learn to kind of create rigid worldviews of like what is possible that might happen, and then we learn to deal with those things. That's freaking awesome, bro. Like just confidence and happiness comes from there, for sure. And just like having faith in yourself like that, it frees up all this mental space. We freaking freak out about everything. Like when you think about it, like, just like where we are in society right now, we freak out about not being able to handle. So not having to spend all that mental energy to anticipate scenarios and then come up with imaginary scenarios of how to deal with those scenarios, whether that be in the workplace or whether it be in familials or whether that be, just how you're going to interact at the shopping center. We create all these scenarios and how we're going to handle it, all these imaginary scenarios that are just like not in reality. And we spend so much of our strength there, right? So we end up being really, we end up expending strength because of the weakness of that worldview of trying to anticipate and trying to believe that we should be perfect in every scenario. And so that's kind of like a worldview that just life drains you. And most of all, for this happiness, and happiness takes work, ? Happiness takes work, ? Most of all, the kind of strength that delivers the most happiness, keeps the door widest open for the most amount of happiness as your spaceship travels through the universe, your body. Spiritual strength, which is also physical strength, as we feel so good from the inside out. Your spiritual strength, which stems from your physical strength, as we pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that we're trying to not put out. Not think about inhaling or exhaling as we observe our sense of self. As we observe our sense of self to allow the body to manifest the strength it needs from the balance that it acquires to wash away any negative feelings which come in the form of imbalances in the body. Literally, not just like, oh, feng shui, but like literally in the sense that the weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front, requires the permission of the rest of your body for all these specific muscles to let go of what they're doing to allow the proper weight-bearing portion of the spine, is the front, which is this bony structure not having any nerves, right? And just by simply virtue of its physical structure is designed to take the weight off of the rest of your body, to take the weight off the muscles that might be trying to use themselves to balance their body. Spiritual strength, the ability to feel well from the inside out and to feel filled with life-loving energy, is also a physical strength. A physical strength in being able to disengage the active muscles to allow the unconscious activating stabilizing muscles to simply allow the weight to be held by the spine so that the rest of the body can feel weightless. It's a very spiritual experience of feeling free to move into any direction, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Why spiritual strength? That inner strength. Basically will, right? The will to do. It's like we know we want to do so many things in life, but we just lack the inner will a lot of the times, the motivation. It's a feeling that we're very familiar with. Motivation as a word we know, but just as much as it's a word, we know that it's a feeling that we associate with. This feeling of having the willpower to move forward with a plan or an idea. This spiritual strength we know is a very physical component. To feel the will to actually enact on any plan that you might see forming in your head. To wash away any emotions that might slow you down from being able to recognize your own behavior and after recognize your own behavior and feeling guilty, like, oh man, I hate that I did that. After confronting that truth, to still have the energy and willpower to actually do something about it. It's like, oh, I don't like the fact that I smoke. Oh, I don't like the fact that I drink. Oh, I don't like the fact that I waste too much time eating or I I stress eat. Oh, I don't like those things. After acknowledging those and then feeling that that like the video game debuff, like you feel that just weight on your body of like acknowledging something you feel guilty about. You recognize like all the potential that could have been if you just weren't a lazy guy or a lazy girl or lustful or a an unstudious or an overindulging person. You notice all the potential that quote unquote in your head that seems wasted, though that's an illusion. After feeling the weight of that, which we know is a physical experience, despite it not being like whether or not our muscles get larger or smaller, we feel the lack of balance in our body. We feel disharmony in our body and our gut. It just feels disharmonious as it's all these muscles that are reacting to your memories and stimuli that are preventing now the weight of the body to be delivered down the front of the spine. There's all this lack of permission that the spine is receiving from the rest of the body to simply be, to just simply sit. All of those, after feeling the weight of all of those, is your spirit, the way you feel from the inside, the motivation, which is generated from the body allowing or having permission to allow the bony portions of your body to take the weight off of your guts and the weight off of your muscles and your brain in order to feel more whole with the body and feel more spirit. You still have the willpower after acknowledging things you don't like about yourself. That was like a really long-winded way of saying that. Do you still have the willpower and spirit to act on improving parts about yourself that make you feel bad when you look at them? Do you still have the ability to create that motivation and inner gusto to actually do something and change your life when you finally see how much you don't like about your life? If there are things you don't like about your life or the way you react to the world, you still have the willpower afterwards. No. Doesn't it take strength? Yes. It takes strength. As much as we associate strength with this physical, outward, immediately world affecting force, as much as we acknowledge strength being that, we also must acknowledge the inner strength it takes from every human being to simply improve as a person. Improve as a person in ways that they might see as beneficial to the world. It takes strength to be able to overcome that feeling when it comes to actually acknowledging the parts of you that you can see that might be slowing you down from your desired potential. It takes strength to not just acknowledge those. It's very hard to see ourselves, right? But then it takes strength furthermore to actually go and do something about that after already feeling the impact of facing it. It's very difficult to maintain the willpower to get over that hump. Most of us will end up slipping back until one day you finally overcome this precipice, which may seem temporary, but as we know, with body integration, it is both an immediate and continuous and consistent improvement for the rest of your life. And doesn't that feel so good to have confidence in that? Kind of like having confidence that you will come out on top over any unforeseen circumstance, which requires strength. Doesn't that deliver a kind of happiness to have confidence in the strength of yourself, as you know you can't control whatever asteroids and rocks and stars come your way in this universe? You can't control the circumstances that come your way, nor can you foresee them, but you can look at your strength currently and grow confidence in that strength to deal with all unforeseen circumstances. And doesn't that generate a kind of happiness, a kind of faith in yourself? As we are holding our controller properly in this simulation that we find ourselves in, you beautiful time traveler, you, as you're watching from the future in a VOD, a video on demand, or here on YouTube presently, here on November 17, 2022. It is a Thursday, which means it is the Truth Hurts Day on Pal Go On. Happiness, question mark. Happiness, does that take work, question mark? All of those different strengths to be able to have confidence that you can deal with any unforeseen circumstance, having confidence in our own strength, which we can actually observe as opposed to this unforeseen future. We'll be right back to talk about this. We'll talk a little bit more about this happiness taking work. Now strength generates this happiness. Send you off with a few little body magic tricks to feel so good. As we finish off this week, let's go. We're almost done. Let's go. It's Thursday. It's Thursday. We're almost there. You got it. You got it. We'll be right back after this short break. Keep going. Keep pushing through. Be right back on the Best Feeling Podcast. My name is Herbie. This is Pal. Go on. We have a recommended book reading list. If you feel like you have a hard time understanding yourself at this stage in your life, check out No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert A. Glover. It's an aggressive title, but a very meaningful book when it comes to understanding the self, both men and women, masculinity and femininity. So you'll see it first in yourself, then throughout the world, so it brings peace through understanding. Do you suffer from a mental illness that you want to actually do something about? Or do you just want to be able to change your patterns and behaviors in life? Check out that book with the girl with holding her hand up. It's an amazing book. The Body's Map of Consciousness, Volume 1, Movement, by Lansing, Barrett, Gresham, and Julie J. Nichols. Do you have body or neck aches throughout the day or throughout the night? And gone to chiropractors and just been frustrated with not being able to get a permanent fix? Check out the purple book, The Structures of Movement and Breathing, by Barbara Conable, and Anatomy of the Voice by Theodore Dimon for a more detailed look. Compare that book on the left and take charge in getting your relief back. All these books are highly recommended and pretty short and just freaking phenomenal books. Beyond impressive, incredible, ridiculous, awesome, stupendous, prodigious. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Why? For inner and outer world peace through individual strength, feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Welcome back to the Best Feeling Podcast and the Best Feeling Network, your only no-nonsense podcast with your host, Herbie. This is Pal. Go on. Happiness takes work? Question mark. Happiness takes work? Question mark. Happiness takes work? Question mark. After acknowledging and dealing with confronting, oh, that's a lot of verbs. After confronting parts of ourselves that we might find undesirable that end up leading to imbalance and unhappiness, after acknowledging parts about ourselves that we don't like, it takes strength to be able to change those patterns of behavior. Not just raw power, not just raw effort, not just writhing and just shaking frantically in order to make some kind of meaningful change regarding these behaviors that we don't like about ourselves, but strength. Strength. Strength is goal oriented. You can be strong in things that are not physical. You can be a strong problem solver. Strength has a goal. How well can you deal with unforeseen circumstances and achieve a goal? Strength is not just physical, though physical strength is important. Physical strength does deal with many problems in life, but there is also emotional strength, mental strength. There's also spiritual strength. Not all are equal, but all are important. Spiritual strength lying at the bottom of them as it imbues you with the inner willpower to commit to growing in any of those strengths. It requires a willpower from you individually to be able to go out and strengthen other strengths. It takes a willpower from within you to go and improve on different topics in your life, whether that's physical, emotional, personal, interpersonal, whatever might have you in your life. It takes an inner willpower to decide that you are going to make a change and then actually going to solve that problem. There are many ways to go about doing each of those, but each of those require, any action in your life requires a willpower from within you. A hard to measure kind of energy that pumps through your body, yet we're also familiar with it. It's not just this even plateau. It's not just this even expensive energy throughout the day. We have our ups and downs. Sometimes we feel more ready to perform certain tasks. Other times it goes down and we feel really less able to handle certain scenarios. And also that depending on the scenario can decide your motivation, how much motivation you have, how much willpower you have inside. We know it's not like this even keel distribution of energy throughout your life. It's very volatile. It goes up and down all the time depending on a bunch of factors. So we know that there is this inner willpower that we identify with, though we don't measure it the same as other physical energies. There's this inner willpower that, if anything, is more interesting because it's more about what is stopping that willpower. Whereas when we see something super fun we want to take part in, something that we know is going to cause a lot of immediate pleasure that we might be into, our willpower goes way up. Whereas when we think about difficult tasks, our willpower can go way down. Yet it's our same physical body. What is this spiritual strength, if not the ability to get rid of whatever is holding us back from unleashing that entire energy that we know actually exists, especially when given the proper motivation? How do we unleash all that entire energy onto something proper and something constructive? Well, in our spiritual strength, or to improve our spiritual strength, oftentimes it's more about letting go, like leaving the swallow muscles alone, like letting go of components of our body or mentality that might be holding us back from unleashing that energy that we know that we have. And isn't that the biggest pain, to know this potential and yet be unable to unlock it? Isn't that the kind of the problem that all of our souls have? We want to unlock all that strength that we know exists because we can see it in some parts of our life, but we can't apply it to other parts in our lives. But if we were able to apply that to all parts of our lives, would we not be able to feel confidence in our ability to feel good all throughout, to feel good from the inside out, no matter whether we get that candy in our hand or not? Would we feel so good throughout spiritually, as in would we still have motivation and have the willpower to do all the great things in order to unleash the greatness and potential in our lives, with or without having that candy placed into our hand? Doesn't that take a spiritual strength? And doesn't a spiritual strength require letting go? Isn't it so scary to let go? So doesn't it take strength to be able to know you'll be fine afterwards? To be able to let go at all, like leaving the swallow muscles alone, as we observe our sense of self. We want to endure the pain. We want to endure the pain of life reliably. We want to leave the swallowing muscles alone. We want to observe our sense of self. We want to gain a spiritual strength so that we can gain in every other strength. You want physical strength? You're going to need that spiritual strength. You want that emotional strength? You're going to need that spiritual strength to have the willpower to discuss and unwrap what you need, be able to let go of what you need to regain strength in your emotional sphere again. You want mental strength? You want to be knowledgeable? You're going to have that. You're going to have that spiritual strength again to be able to go out and seek knowledge and gain wisdom. Oh, you're going to want wisdom? Oh, you're going to have the spiritual strength to deal with the emotional problems that come from failure, that come from making many mistakes so you can grow many fast. As we all know, we want to do so well in life. We don't want to leave a hole in the shape and size of our soul in society. We want to fill that hole in society with our soul performing so well in life. You want to perform so well in life? Oh, you're going to have to make mistakes. Are you going to have to make mistakes? You're going to have some emotional problems. You're going to have to deal with those emotional problems. You're going to have spiritual strength. Spiritual strength by letting go. As we know, you got that energy. You got it, man. You got it, girl. You got that energy. We know you do. You just want to unlock it everywhere. How do we deal with spiritual strength? How do we do it letting go? Let's leave the swallowing muscles alone. Let's pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. You want to listen to the front of your shins like they're the speakers and tuning forks of the world around you. You want to observe your sense of self. You want to see us here on Pagawan tomorrow on Freedom Friday. You want to feel so good from the inside out. My name is Herbie, and this is absolutely the best feeling podcast. Pagawan. We'll be back tomorrow. Freedom Friday, baby. Let's go. Almost there. Let's go. Woo.